thank the Republican Liberty Caucus for having me here today. I take every opportunity I can to get in front of good folks like you to let you know what my message is. And tonight I want to preach a message of conservative change, real change for the district that I live in, and the district that I hope to represent, the district that some of you live in. 2 years ago, I ran against the same individual I'm running against now. He's an incumbent this time. Last time we were both running as petition candidates. And I was asked today by Tim McGinnis on WPD, why run against Mike just 2 years later? And the fact of the matter is that I became very tired of hearing Mike, as our legislator, say things like, nothing can be done about that. Or, you put your trust in me, and I'm going to make the decisions now, so you should just go with what my decisions are. And quite frankly, not doing enough in the district to bring about the needs that we have there. You know, if you listen to what Mike's rhetoric was 2 years ago, it does not match his record. You know, take a look at his South Carolina Club for Growth score. He is the lowest rated Republican, he's the lowest rated member of our delegation, and the third lowest rated Republican in the entire State House. I think that's deplorable from somebody who ran on a message of conservative reform, cutting waste, eliminating waste, not taxing, not spending, bringing about conservative change. I have a couple of numbers here I just want to go over. This is just a handful of the veto overrides that he had voted on. The governor vetoed a lot of waste. A lot of us can support what Governor Haley does when it comes to vetoing waste in Columbia. He voted against and overriding her vetoes in just this handful of them to the tune of $2,963,000. $100,000 for repairs to a Garnwell County courthouse. $353,000 to Waddell Mariculture Center. $200,000 to outreach funds for the legislature, which, as an example, is hunting and fishing trips for legislators. $1 million for a cultural visitor center, of which the funds were never requested. $417,000 to the Arts Commission, and the list goes on and on. This is not acceptable. It's not acceptable as a conservative candidate. It's not acceptable as a conservative leader. Now, he's not doing enough to be accountable to us for our tax dollars. I recently found that he's tabled the vote as to whether or not the state legislature needs to fund local governments. Since 2008, the state legislature has failed to fund our local governments, to hire police officers, hire judges, help build roads. And again, he supported the kicking of that can down the road. Not only is he not supporting the minimum that comes back home, he's not fighting to get our fair share back. We're one of the highest donor counties in the state. We send more tax revenue to Columbia than almost any other county in the state, and we get nothing back in return. These vetoes, if this is horse trading, if this is him trying to get something back here home, what is it? Because I haven't seen it. I don't know what we got for this $3 million. And I think that's unacceptable. Another thing that I've heard him say recently at a meeting that Peggy and I were at is that, well, he sold his business because this is a full-time job. That should scare every single person in this room. Why would you sell a lucrative business for a $10,000 a year gig? Why? Do we need full-time legislators? Is it a full-time job? I don't think so. I think legislators are there too long as it is. If the state of Texas could get their business done every 2 years, why do we need full-time legislators here? And what bothers me most is if it's a full-time job for him, where is he? John, you live in the district. Have we had a town hall?
I don't think so.
Have we had a newsletter? Have you had a survey? He's done none of that. If I'm elected, I promise to do a couple things. First of all, I have an office that I'm not going to give up. I will dedicate 1 day a week of that office while we're not in session to constituent service. If you have a problem, my entire day will be devoted to helping people with those problems. You can come in, we will schedule appointments, we will have that office available to people who have problems in the district. All right? My second thing is I will have quarterly town halls. You'll know before I head off to Columbia what issues we're going to take up. I want your feedback, I want your input, I want to know what you think about those issues so that I can use that feedback when forming my opinion as to how to handle a bill. There's going to be town hall meetings, there's going to be newsletters, you're going to get information back from me. I'm going to use social media effectively. Subscribe to my Twitter feed, subscribe to my Facebook page. You're going to get information from me about what's going on in Columbia and be able to directly communicate with me if you have a concern. Those are things the incumbent's not doing, and I think it's unacceptable. Another thing that I'm tired of hearing, those of you who saw him on TV this weekend, the Tim McGinnis show, I'm tired of being painted as an inexperienced candidate. I'm going to take a minute to answer that right now because it bothers me. It's a craw on my side and I need to address it. I'm not wet behind the ears just out of high school or college. I paid my way, I put myself through law school, I've been practicing law for a decade, and for 7 years of that decade, I've been running my own practice. I'm a small business owner. I have more small business experience in those 7 years than he has ever had. I have more experience involved in a family business with my mother and my father, who's here with me, my mother's here with me tonight, that's 5 times the amount of experience in small business than he'll ever have. That's the backbone of our economy. The only experience he brings to the legislature is wasting taxpayer dollars. I don't want that experience. I promise you that if I'm back here in 2 years seeking re-election, I won't have that experience. I still won't have that experience because I don't plan on wasting your tax dollars. It's not what I want to do. So why me? In 2 years, I think very little has changed for that district. Population base for that district is Carolina Forest. It's the fastest growing community in the fastest growing county in the fastest growing state in the country. And nothing's changed there. Nothing. The roads haven't improved. There's no turn lanes. I talked to people on Highway 90, which is another part of that district. 5 deaths in the last 6 years. On one turn, they can't get anything accomplished for that road. Not anything. It's deplorable. And it needs to change. He talks about, well, I got funding for 501 road widening, southbound towards the beach. He found funding, we pushed the project back from 2016 to 2020. That's a bait and switch. Don't fall for it. It's not what we need. We need somebody who's going to go up there with a backbone and stand up for the things that we need in that district, who's going to keep his door open to the people who live there, his mind open to their ideas, and who's going to fight for the things that we need. And that's what I want to do. Peggy asked me an interesting question, and I'm sure there'll be a moment for questions and answers here. But you asked me an interesting question at the last meeting that I spoke at. How would I handle a bill? And how would I handle a bill differently from the way he handles it? And my answer to that, and I'm glad you asked that question because it's the first time I actually sat down and thought about it and to formulate my response. I think it's always been in the back of my mind. And the answer to that is the first thing I'm going to do is if a bill comes across my desk, I want to determine what the tax burden to the people of the state is going to be. Okay? Then I'm going to determine the project that the bill's supporting. Does that project outweigh the burden on the taxpayer? Is it worth the money? But more importantly than anything else, I want to hear from the constituency. What do you think about this? Do you dislike it? Do you have a moral obligation to it? I want to take that and use that in my feedback. We're not always going to agree. There's no doubt about that. There's going to be disagreements. But there's also going to be an opportunity for you to change my mind and me to change your mind. And that's what this is about. I'm there to be a representative, not a legislator. I want to represent you. And I want to make decisions on your behalf. You know, my campaign promise, if you haven't had an opportunity to grab one of these pamphlets, take it. My promise is right on the front. I don't plan on holding Mike to a different standard of accountability than I'm holding myself to. If in 2 years you put your trust in me and you don't don't see more conservative votes, and you don't see decisive leadership, and you don't see the change that you're looking for in a representative, then by all means, don't vote for me again. If you like what he's doing right now, then you should probably vote for him again. But if you give me an alternative, if you give me a chance as an alternative, and you don't like what you see out of me, then put me out of office too. Because I don't want to be there. I don't want to hold myself to a different standard than I hold him to. And I think that's fair. And he got his opportunity. His rhetoric did not meet his record. He's turned his back on a lot of his campaign promises. He's turned his back on a lot of folks who support him. And I think that he should be embarrassed by that. And I want an opportunity to show you that I can do better. If I don't get a Club for Growth score that's the best in this delegation next year, I will not come back here and ask for your support. That'd be wrong of me to do. But I'll tell you what, if I do fall short, you're going to see something. There's going to be some reason that you saw it. We're going to have something that we can point to. Mike likes to say he loves the job. I heard him say at the GOP meeting the other night, he loves the job. Of course he loves the job. There's a lot of perks. There's a lot of status, a lot of clout. I'm doing this because I love the community I serve. I'm doing this because I feel called to do it. I have felt called to do this my whole life. I didn't jump in this at the last minute because I didn't have anything better to do. This is something I care about deeply. I care about that community. My work with the Carolina Forest Civic Association over the years shows that. Now I want an opportunity to have a job that has got some teeth in it. If you give me the opportunity, I promise you I can do better than he has. And I will do better than he has, and I'll make him proud. So with that, I'll take any questions that you want to have.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Questions? Questions? Diane?
Golly jeepers, as a guy actually running where you'll be seeing if you get elected, I'm running for county council for District 8, and the majority of that is half the 56 and then half of the 68, and then we have 105 and 56. Anyhow, my point is, you spoke to 501, and I've done extensive studies on the cost effectiveness of adding the lanes. Now, lanes are nice because we can get more traffic through there, but I keep hearing from the state legislatures and the other council members, we only got X amount of dollars. So I was like, okay, since I usually think out of the box and look out of the box, I looked at light synchronization. Light synchronization only costs a quarter of adding lanes. I mean, when you've been on 501, anybody who's been on 501, you're sitting at the front of the light, it turns green, the next light turns red. You get two cars through the intersection, the next light turns red, instead of a flood. So, what I'm asking is, and I've asked this of all the people who are in office right now, can I get a dedication that you will help try to fund that if I'm elected? Because I'm going to be spearheading that hard and heavy. So, can I get a dedication? Or
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
I'm glad you asked me that question, and I'm going to apologize in advance because I've been stealing that. I've heard you say that before, and I've been stealing that in my door-to-door. I agree with you.
When you do that, tell them, Daniel
I will.
Cochran gave me this idea.
I will. I think it's a fantastic idea. I chose to make Horry County my home, but I come from New York. I lived in New York City much of my life. I think it's appalling that I can get from uptown Manhattan to downtown Manhattan in less time than it takes me to get from Aner to Carolina Forest. And it's light synchronization, you're right. And if we can do that on 501 and free up the flow of traffic, I think that's fantastic. There's other things that need to be done. I think International Drive cannot get postponed again. It needs to be completed. If we can find the funding, we need to connect Gardner-Lacey Road to that. Coastal Way's got to be done. I'm not sure about I-73, but it'd be very inexpensive and probably done very quickly if we could connect 31 to 74 and have an interstate-like road giving access to Horry County. Those are all things that will help the flow of traffic on 501, but the easiest and least expensive thing to do is light synchronization. So yes, if I'm elected, I'll support that idea. I will help secure the funding for it, and I'll tell people that it was your idea. You're welcome.
Because I noticed that one of my other candidates stole my map off my website, and they're using it on theirs now to try to show the weird little amoeba that we have. It's called the egg.
Okay.
So I'm like, I should put my name on the bottom.
Dennis,
Yes.
what assurance do we have that you will not become an
see they become different individuals and tell us that, I can't go there.
No, and it's a fair question. I think my actions speak louder than any words I can tell you. You live in Carolina. You're familiar with the Civic Association. John, as he's been to meetings, I know that. You've been to a couple meetings. You know, we started that out of a passion to help. I mean, the backstory on that is we were pissed at the Aner overpass, for lack of a better word. We were upset with the way our tax dollars were being spent, and we felt like we needed to create a community organization that can voice the concerns of that community to county council. And that was the impetus of creating it. I founded that organization with some other individuals. I served as its president. I've worked really hard for no benefit other than because it was the right thing to do. It's what created my desire. I've always been called to service. It's what's created my desire to serve in government. And I would like to use this position in much the same way that I use that position to help get things done for the community. Part of it's just going to be fake. But if you look at what happened after I lost the race 2 years ago, I didn't take time off. I went immediately back to that board and started working on the ground again, because that's what I care about. If I can't do it from there, I'll do it from the grassroots. But I want an opportunity to do it in a position where there can be some effectiveness. And like I said, my pledge is my pledge. If you don't see what you hope to see in 2 years, get me out of office. I don't belong. I don't.
Thank you. One other question.
Sure.
Your opinion on legislating more rules and regulations or looking to kill some of our laws that are in place already?
Specifically with regard to
There's
what?
too many specifics, but would you like to see less regulation, less rules? Or are you an individual who likes to legislate more laws, more rules, more oversight, more?
That's a very broad question that's asking for a very specific answer, but I'll try and answer it this way. Generally speaking, regulation is bad, in my opinion. I don't like the idea of regulation. There are specific areas that the government is intruding upon that it doesn't belong in, okay? And there are certain areas that the government should be in that business, and they're not in it far enough. Roads is one of those, okay? They're not doing enough for our roads in the state. We're terrible across the entire state. I would support a reduction in regulation, but there are some areas, like HOA regulation, that doesn't have enough regulation. There are some issues where you might have to have more regulation, many more issues where you have to deregulate. And that's my perspective on things.
Thank you.
It's a hard question to answer, but that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have other speakers this evening. I hate to cut you short.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Out of respect for the other speakers. Yes.
Absolutely.